You know what? It's time we drew the greatest superhero, real life superhero that is, of our generation. Our medical staff. Our doctors, nurses, ambulance drivers, all those folks, they've all been working their posteriors off, so let's celebrate their tenacity by drawing them with a shiny red cape. Make sure you watch the entirety of today's video, like you should with all of my videos by the way, just to make sure you get all the best tips that I just think about as I go along, and those are the tips that all the skippers miss out on. Don't be a skipper. Hit that like button and the subscribe button, as doing both really helps the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a tutorial. Let's get started. Alright, so as with every drawing, we're going to start with the head, and the head's going to be pretty big on this character. We're going for a really cartoony style with this one, so the head's going to be a big old circle just like this, just refining that shape a little bit better for you. There we go. So I mean, the size of this head is going to be, if you think about it, it's probably like a third of the character, or maybe it's even more than that. Hang on, that's two, so it's like two, yeah, it's like 2.5 heads in height altogether. So we want to split this down the middle, give it a bit of a curve so it looks like a sphere, and then cut it across the middle horizontally, just so we can kind of get those nice 4/4 of the head and make sure we know that it's facing off to the left like that. If I were to put a curve there or there, our character would be looking down or up, but that's not really what we're going for this time. We just want to be facing straight to the side, nice and simple, no need for anything too fancy. So now for a line right down the center of where the torso is going to be, and give it a bit of a curve because I want the hips to kind of stick out there, and then a line for the hips. Think about how wide those are, that the hips are going to just end at the ends of those lines, going to end there and end there. So think about how wide you want that line to be, and then starting from those ends, draw a line straight down for each leg. And if you want, we can add like little kind of bumps to the feet here, but just make sure that those are level horizontally, that they actually meet, because the character is standing on a floor and you don't want one leg longer than the other. So just going to etch out some little kind of chevron shapes or triangle shapes. They're more like chevrons, to be honest, either side of the torso. And make sure that elbow kind of comes out rather far, and then the wrist goes right in towards the hip there. So just add a little block for each of the hands for now, and then we'll add some detail to those later, but for now just going to add a small little kind of nub for each foot for now. We'll come back and add some details to those in a little while, but for now just a simple kind of blob sticking out like that is fine. So we're going to finish the head first, and then we'll work our way downwards from there. So I think a good place to start somewhere in this head would be, let's start with the eye. We want to draw like a big oval smack bang in the middle of the head, kind of like Mike Wazowski actually. And so just draw this kind of oval here, right in the middle. And then just within this, you want to draw another smaller oval. It's a bit more narrow. It's not quite as wide, but it's still fairly tall. That's going to be the iris of our character. That's kind of like, you know, like the pupil, or like the coloured bit around a pupil. And just there, that's kind of a bit too rounded. It makes our character look a bit too alert. So I think we need to tidy this up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this line back a little bit like that. Only the part of the eye, not the actual iris, and then just draw a curve across like that for the cheek. And this, if we bunch this up and make it so that it's touching the bottom of the iris there, we can see that our character is actually smiling, because we're not actually going to be able to see the mouth, because there's going to be a mask right over her mouth, so we won't see it like a normal smile. So you can express emotions with the eyes when you can't see the mouth. That's a really kind of valuable tip generally in cartoons. If you can't see the character's mouth, that's a good place to start. Just get a little eyelash here on the side, bit of a feminine touch. I'm actually going to show you a tutorial up in the bottom, the top right corner, sorry, for how to draw eyes. That's a pretty handy tutorial for you, excellent for beginners. And I'm going to start on her hair now. I'm going to make it kind of like a wavy slash curvy kind of style to the eyes. Add a little ear here. It doesn't need to be more than a little curve with another smaller curve just inside it. Okay, just going to carry on the hair here. I think it's important to draw out the hair first, because the hair could be dangling over parts of her body. Otherwise we won't have to draw them if we draw the hair kind of over them. So it makes sense to draw the hair first, because then we can just kind of like take shortcuts around things that we don't have to draw necessarily. You don't need to waste any time when you're drawing cartoons. So I'm just going to add a big kind of quiffy, kind of spirally thing here at the front of her hair. It's very, very stylized. It's not exactly a realistic haircut, but cartoons. We never go for anything particularly realistic in cartoons. I'm just going to add a little line here so we know where the parting of the hair is, going towards the back of her head if we could see it, but we can't because there's lots of hair in the way. So a little line there helps you to decide the direction of where her hair is going to go. I will include a link to how to draw hair as well. That one's pretty useful, to be honest. Now this side I'm just going to draw a little line for it because I want her to be winking, and then the eyebrow above it is going to be slightly furrowed and angled down to make it look like the eye is stressing, so it's actually squeezing shut. You can add another little eyebrow up there. You're probably not going to be able to see it though, depending on how you've drawn your hair. I'm just going to add mine there just for reference, because I think it looks tidier. So I think now what we'll do is we'll etch out the shape of the face a little bit more, because right now it's just a little sphere and it's not really done. So if you kind of angle it in towards where you drew the wink, again that kind of accentuates just how squished tight that side of the face is. It really exaggerates the wink that she's pulling there. So I'm going to add a little bit more cheek here, just kind of erase that line there and make her cheek puff out just a little bit more, just because I think it would look a little bit better and make her face look a bit less flat. So give that a bit of a bulge. I've actually overdone that a little bit there. Let me just tidy that up. Okay, so and now we can draw her mask. So the mask will be going over the nose, under the eyes, and then against the side of the face. And just kind of bring that down the side of the mask there, and on the other side as well. Try and get that as symmetrical as you can as you go along. Just tuck it over the chin there as well. Add a couple of straps there just so it actually stays on her face. You don't really want a mask that's just going to fall straight off. It's not much of a mask. And now the S logo, because they're pretty super. They're doing a pretty damn super job at the moment. So we need to express that with a big kind of Superman logo, unofficially of course, on the mask there. Let's draw a little kind of shield around it as well. Give the design a little bit more originality, while staying fairly close to the original design. And I've actually forgotten a bit of hair over here, so I'm just going to add a few kind of curls on this side of her head, keep it the same length as the other side of her head as well. And a little star coming out of the wink, because why not? It's a very kind of cartoony thing as well. A little star kind of coming out of a character's eye when they wink. And let's add a bit of shine to that eye as well, just kind of give it a bit of character and make it look a bit softer. Alright, so the head at this point, pretty much done. So we'll move down onto the torso. I think a good place to start here is the neck. So start with a little semicircle there for the neck, and then a V set underneath that, and another V, a bigger V, just kind of set underneath that one. Just kind of drawing out the shape of a nurse's gown at the moment. And now for a stethoscope, because that's pretty useful for a nurse to have, or a doctor. It doesn't matter where you are in the medical profession. A stethoscope is a pretty good idea. So we can have it draping over her shoulder and under her hair here, and then just kind of dangling around the other side of her chest, so it looks like it's actually going around her neck, because that's where they always seem to kind of dangle them, and I can't really blame them. It seems like a pretty sensible place to put a stethoscope if you're not using it. Okay, we can make this nice and small, by the way, because it's a cartoon. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to look like it would actually go around her ears. We can kind of play around the size. Okay, so keep the chest nice and thin and angle it out a little bit, tiny bit, as you reach the hands. And now, speaking of the hands, we're actually going to add a bit of detail to these now. So we have just started off with some blocks here, but we're going to actually build out some fingers now. So follow along the shape of the block until you get to about here, then kind of etch out the shape of the finger as you head towards the center of the block. And then next to this, I'm going to do it again, but much bigger. That's going to be a clump of 3 fingers sat next to this one finger here. So that's an index finger on its own, right there, and then that's 3 fingers together. So we're just going to kind of draw in 2 lines, that's all that's needed, and we can separate those fingers straight away. Now we've got a nice easy kind of hand resting on the waist. You can draw the arm now, so follow along the guideline that you drew, and follow it up towards the elbow, and kind of thicken it out a bit as you get to that elbow there. I'm just going to kind of draw in kind of like a circular shape there, just for guidance. And again, follow the guideline back towards the torso. And right now that arm's looking a bit bare, so we need to draw a sleeve around it. She is actually wearing a sleeve, so we're going to draw a little loop sitting around this. Okay, give it a nice bit of curve so it looks like it's 3D and it's actually sitting around that arm as well. Don't just draw a line across the arm or it'll look very cardboard cut-outy, and that's not really what we're going for there. And of course we need to do it with this one as well, so just like a little block isn't going to do, so let's add a little finger and then another bigger clump underneath that. Same deal but other side. Pretty good practice, to be honest, just kind of do it a second time. And now 2 lines going over and forming 3 fingers. We just kind of build out the shape of that arm again. Thicken it out towards the elbow here. It's a bit wider there than it is at the wrist. Wrist is much thinner. And then just kind of follow the guide back to the torso. And again, we just need to add a little sleeve here. A bit of it's hidden by the hair, but that's fine. You're going to find that happens a lot when you're drawing cartoons. Loads and loads of overlap. Okay, so now let's just kind of... Oh, actually, I was going to neaten that up, but I've made a bit of a pig's ear of that. Let me sort that out. So we're now going to start building out the shape of the legs here. So right now, I mean, you could really just do this. It looks okay, but it doesn't really look good enough for what we're going for. We're going to give them a bit more shape than that. So starting from here, we're going to come out a tiny bit from that guideline. See how subtle that line is? So subtle. Ever so slightly out. Then it meets the line again before going back out where the shoes are for a bit of flair. Okay? And then from there, we want to kind of build this back up to here, to the crotch where the legs kind of meet together. And then we're going to bridge them together with a line across like that. And we need to do the leg on the other side pretty much the same way. So we kind of go in and then back out. And then we're going to guide this up towards this arm here. And you'll see that the arm is thicker at the elbow, but the knee is thinner at the knee. And that's because the arm is actually kind of squished up, because the arm is folded. So that bit there, where the muscle squishing, is going to be a little bit thicker here. But the knee, in contrast, is actually completely straight out. So there's no squishing going on there at all. It actually goes in a little bit. So that's why the knees go in this instance, and the arms kind of go thicker towards the elbow. It's kind of a one-off for this pose. So let's just finish off these pumps, add a couple of little kind of semicircle shapes on the tops of those shoes. There we go. Just tidy that up a little bit. And now she's almost done, but we're missing a cape. So you can draw this any way you like. I'm going to draw it in a really kind of traditional kind of Superman style, just because I think that's what looks best here. Give it a bit of a wave, like it's kind of billowing in the wind. Swoop it back behind her. Just add a little bit behind the legs there as well. And bonus points if you add a little bit there as well. Fill out the back, because otherwise it looks like it's just kind of disappearing. Now you can crinkle this in any way you like. I'm just going to add a couple of folds like that. And I'd say at this point our sketch of our super nurse is done. So hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to grab my inking tools. You should do the same. Let's get rid of some of these guidelines and actually finalize this drawing and get it all done. You should do the same. So I'm going to go do that, and I'll see you in just a minute. And there she goes, off to save another life. Where would we be without our medical staff? Leave a comment letting me know what you'd like me to draw next time, and don't forget you can now join the Draw Cartoons Discord channel. It's fast growing, there's a link in the description below, and you can share all of your artwork, get some feedback, and talk to the growing community, and me by the way. Don't forget to leave a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel for more great tutorials just like this one. Until next time,